Hey, Shalom. This is a presentation about my new book, The United States of America's the Babylon of Revelations. And this book was written without the assistance of AI. However, this presentation was done with the assistance of AI. So I'm going to give a short presentation here on YouTube for those who are more visual. You can read along here. I won't necessarily read every word on here, but I want to introduce you to some of the key concepts of the book, the key ideas behind why I believe what I believe, some impactful things that'll hopefully entice you to want to dive further into the rabbit hole. So the core thesis of the book is, if the end times events of Revelation and Jeremiah were to unfold today, no other entity on earth aligns with the biblical description of Mystery Babylon with such staggering precision. You have to be open-minded that prophecies could still be unfolding in the modern day. If you're not open-minded about that, you're going to get nothing from the book. Identifying Mystery Babylon. Babylon is not merely an abstract system or spiritual archetype. It is defined in Scripture as a specific geographical superpower with unmatched influence. It's the hindermost of the nations, a young latecomer nation among ancient empires. It is seated upon many waters, unprecedented oceanic dominance and global diplomatic footprint. Babylon is the economic powerhouse. Global merchants wax rich through her lavish consumption. Babylon is the global military hegemon known as the hammer of the whole earth. You see these parallels across different Babylons that exist in the Bible. Babylon is both an archetype and, at various points in time, a literal, specific, actual entity, such as a nation or an empire. So it is both. In Revelation 17 and 18, it describes a great city-nation arrayed in luxury, sitting over peoples, nations, and tongues. She commands international trade, yet falls to catastrophic sudden judgment. Jeremiah 50:51 identifies a land of agricultural abundance, international commerce, and military power. It explicitly calls believers to flee out of the midst of Babylon to save their souls before judgment. So you see parallels. It's a bit of a Venn diagram, but they have a lot more in common than not. And I examine other scriptures outside of Revelation, Jeremiah. I examine in the book each and every time it's mentioned, going back to the Tower of Babel. Key book metrics and facts. The United States has over 750 bases in over 80 plus countries. There are very few other countries on the planet that even have a military base outside of their own country. The United States has been estimated to have caused 38 million deaths due to economic and political sanctions, whether it's on nations that are in the midst of a war or a revolution or a coup, or because of U.S. involvement or not. The United States has put sanctions on other nations. A more recent example might be Iran or Venezuela, where they're not allowed to participate in the global economic system. The United States is estimated to have killed over 38 million people. The citation and the explanation, the diving into that in more detail, is within the book. A lot of people don't have any awareness of this because these are not the deaths that are filmed, like deaths that take place in a war, the deaths that people hear about, that one soldier shot another. These are the deaths caused by human misery and suffering. 31% its share of total global private wealth. So this is just the total assets, not just money in a bank account, but the value of the yachts and the skyscrapers and the corporations and the factories and everything. The United States, while it is a very small population, 31% of total global private wealth. Imagine that being concentrated in such a small number of people. Obviously not evenly distributed. I don't think I got my even share of that, did you? And I don't really talk too much in the book about the education system, but 54% of adults read below a 6th grade level. I'm not going to comment any further upon that. Military might, the United States operates over 750 military bases with an air force larger than the next several powers combined. There is no nation that can stand up to the United States one-on-one if it's about spending money. There are potential risks with the U.S. military, even with all the money the U.S. military spends. I think one day it's going to be a David and Goliath situation where all the money they spend won't be able to save them. But realistically, there's no nation on earth that could actually fight the United States currently, at least not on its own. Financial dominance, commanding the world reserve fiat currency. And as an asterisk to that last statement, I mean using conventional warfare. Financial dominance, commanding the world reserve fiat currency, absorbing real global goods through trade deficits while accumulating unpayable national debt. Do you really think the United States is going to honestly pay back the money that it owes? Cultural export. The United States exports media, Hollywood entertainment, and pharmaceutical dependence, pharmakia, to every corner of the globe. A lot of people don't realize this, but approximately half of global pharmaceutical sales come from the United States. We make the pharmakia. We advertise the pharmakia on TV. A lot of other countries ban that. It might surprise you to know. Hollywood is the global center of entertainment. Everywhere I've gone outside of the United States, the movie theaters show the same Hollywood movies. Everyone's watching the same media. Everyone's listening to the same pop stars. Even if they don't understand all the words, they're listening to the music. The United States, more than any other country in the world, is exporting media. Maybe the Japanese export anime or India exports Bollywood, but there's really nothing else on the planet like Hollywood and the pharmaceutical industry that you have in the United States when you talk about their power and influence around the world. Okay, the hindermost of the nations, a hammer of the whole earth, deceived by sorceries, merchants were made rich. The United States is the world's largest consumer market, and it has over a $1 trillion annual trade deficit at the time of writing, meaning that we're sending out each and every year IOUs, and we're receiving actual real goods and value in return for all the IOUs that we're sending. Not just the government, but the corporations and the individuals who accumulate debt as well. Nationally, we are sending out more IOUs than we're sending out actual productive goods or services, and the United States is siphoning wealth off the rest of the world because of the advantage it has being the world reserve currency and many other factors that I don't have time to get into, but the book talks about in more details. I want to highlight these last two key details: slaves and souls of men. Okay, there's been over 300,000 migrant children lost. That's terrifying, and you have to think about that. You have to imagine use your imagination right now. Imagine one individual child attempting to cross the border from Mexico into the United States. These children arrive. Maybe they're accompanied by someone who's not related to them. Maybe they're not accompanied by anyone at all. The United States government assigns them a guardian, and those children disappear forever and are never seen or heard from again. Over 300,000 migrant children have been lost. I had to pause there for a moment and catch my breath. 300,000 children that immigration documented, recorded them crossing the border into the United States. The U.S. government gave them to someone, and the United States government has not seen or heard from them since. So apparently they chose the wrong guardian to give it to. The thing about this, though, is, I could, understand maybe if 3 were lost or 30 or even 300, but 300,000. That sounds like an institutional intention rather than just an accident. And you put that on top of annually there's over 215,000 CPS child removals. Some of those are legitimate, but if the disappeared migrant children does not bother you at all. The thing is, everyone on the television is like, oh, that there was that bad man with an island. He was so bad, and he had an island, and he had a ranch, and he is bad, and he did bad things on his island and on his ranch, and I'm sure he's going to be burning in the fiery place for all of eternity. I think he's going to be one of the top VIPs there. He's going to get the burniest experience. Having said that, the United States government wants you to focus on, oh, bad man with an island, bad man with an island. He is a bad man with an island. The United States government is doing even worse. 300,000 migrant children who are just, whoop, they crossed the border. We know they crossed the border. Haven't seen or heard from them since. Some people say slavery ended with the Civil War in 1865. I think it just changed its manifestations and changed the way in which that operates. The United States is still engaging, literally and figuratively, in the business of trade, even with the souls of people, such as children. Great men of the earth, the United States is home to 902 billionaires, holding 30.5% of all international wealth. Okay, this is a graph about military spending. So the next closest nation in military spending to the United States is China. Now, China is not directly at war with the United States. People worry about Taiwan, who knows. But the Chinese aren't going to have global military dominance with a budget like that. The United States spends so much more than all these other countries combined. Amazingly, look at that. Russia, the bad guy, punching Ukraine every single day. What a terrible country Russia is. They're spending less than 10% of we are. Everyone wants to focus on Russia bad, and maybe Russia is bad. Probably. But the United States is bombing even more countries than Russia is. Russia's bombing Ukraine. The United States is bombing a whole lot of people. Go to antiwar.com, watch Anti-War News with Dave DeCamp. You would be amazed at how many countries we bomb on a single daily basis every single day. You'd be amazed. Watch Dave DeCamp's report. Global private wealth share. The United States, I've gotten a little bit repetitive about this, but think about this per capita too, because okay, the United States is about double China, but the United States has a very small fraction of China's population. So as a percentage, Americans in general, on average, as a statistical average, they are rich. Obviously, some of us individually didn't get our fair share. The United States siphons off wealth from the rest of the world as a result of being the most trusted currency in the world, incorrectly I think, but in time that will be revealed. As a result of it being the largest stock market in the world, the most powerful government in the world, there's lots of reasons why people trust the United States and prefer the United States dollars. For what that's worth. There's obviously more to be said there from an investment perspective, but I'm not going to focus too much on technicals here. I do go into some technicals in the book. The main command is, "Come out of her, my people." Revelation 18:4 does not advise believers to stay and reform the empire, nor does it promise safety through prepper bunkers or political action. The command is explicit. Physical and spiritual extrication is required to avoid participating in her sins and receiving her imminent plagues. And I do have a later command about this. I want to actually go to this first before I talk about the next steps. Fleeing Babylon is not just about saving yourself at the last moment before final destruction, but it is about refusing to live in a nation polluted with idolatry and rebellion against the Creator. When you identify the core characteristics of Babylon, that becomes more clear in what ways they are pursuing idolatry and rebellion. In the book, I also talk about how to flee Babylon. This is something that makes me unique. You're not going to get this anywhere else. I read a whole bunch of books on Babylon, and in fact, if you open up my book and you go to some of the very last pages, let me show you on camera, even though the camera's kind of small. I've got a bibliography with reviews and recommendations for other books on the same topic. It's not just me that thinks the United States is Babylon. Some other people have written books about it too, and so I give some good book recommendations there as well. I talk about how to flee Babylon, options for, what are the basic things you need to know about visas if you're traveling to other countries. I recommend how to adapt to new cultures, and how to live holy in spite of all the craziness going on in the world geopolitically. Fleeing is not just about physical relocation. It requires total obedience to the red letters of Yeshua. So if you read the book like, okay, I'm going to flee Babylon, Daniel, I agree with you 100%, and I'm just going to go go somewhere and live an unrighteous life, that's not going to do you much good if you're not living obedient to the Father, which first and foremost you should be. So this isn't just about saving your own skin. Ultimately, it's about being obedient to the Father. If the Father tells you stay, hold your ground, you stay and hold your ground. Father tells you go, you go. If he says flee, don't take it personally. Flee doesn't mean you retreat. Flee doesn't mean you give up. Flee doesn't mean you abandon. Get the human perspective, the ego out of it. We're just doing whatever the Father tells us to do, based in the light of Scripture and how we can best understand prophecy. So I invite you to read the full book. There is a free PDF available. It should be in the description. If it's not, because I'm forgetful, just send me an email there, and I'm happy to hear from you and what you think of the book. Here's some sources for images used in the presentation. So, shalom, brothers and sisters. I hope this was edifying to you, and I hope this enticed you to pick up a copy of my new book, which was just published recently, June 12th. And just as a little prayer request at the end of the presentation here, it's a praise request, I guess, actually, because things have been going well with my new job. I've been busy with that, but it's a good job. I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing, and so I would ask to say a blessing to a friend of mine named Leandro. He hooked me up with the job I have currently. So if you want to say a prayer for me, better say a blessing for him. So shalom, brothers and sisters. Take care.